You're using GMO to control the production of our own indigenous food. You control by killing them, by bringing in your GMOs. When you plant your GMO plant here, the first thing it does is make sure that it kills the indigenous crops.
I think, let me correct that perception. This is just a perception. This is not the truth. I told you there are only 7 countries in Africa that have allowed release of GMO. Uganda has not allowed the release of GMO.
But they're here.
Yes, and and resistance.
That is okay. That might not cause a health problem. That my problem is on the health of Africans. That may not cause a health, because after all, these are 2 potatoes. Yeah. All of them, we have been eating them.
Yes.
What you've done is to join 2 of them to create one good yield.
Resistant, yeah.
Without chemical. That is okay.
So the same thing is applies to that potato, rather tomato you're talking about in the market that are big, whatever. Those tomatoes are developed by conventional method.
Free your mind.
The weekly round table with your speaker Andrew Irumba Katusale. Last week I had a very intriguing debate with Dr. Valentine Aritua, a man who discovered a disease, a pest. Is it pest?
Yeah.
Pest
disease.
Pest disease.
Pathogen disease in
beans in Rwanda.
Yeah.
And most people have been inboxing me to bring him to expound more about the same, but also we can tackle other issues. So I bring him this afternoon again to discuss more or less some other issue, but also in his line of duty.
Okay.
GMO stands for genetically modified organisms. It refers to any living organisms, plant, animal, or microbe whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. This is done to introduce desirable traits such as resistance to pests, diseases, or environmental conditions, and to improve nutritional content or shelf life. That is GMO. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's the exact definition of GMO.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you have another scientific definition you can give to GMO?
No, that's just the correct definition of GMO and the objectives why they are developed. So you defined actually what is for.
So now, let's dive into the details of GMO. GMO, when you are doing GMO, what are those things that you look at first?
So just like you said, in plants, most of the GMO that has been developed is for resistance to diseases, because conventional breeding has failed to develop resistance to breeding diseases to some plants. For example, last time we talked about banana bacterial wilt. Right? Banana bacterial wilt, which is caused by Xanthomonas vascular PV musacerum, which I renamed from the former Capestus.
When I keep repeating myself, I will learn it.
Yeah, it was first called Xanthomonas Capestus musacerum, then I renamed it as Xanthomonas vascular PV musacerum. So now, they have collected all varieties of banana in Uganda and screened them. All of them are susceptible to the disease.
Susceptible to diseases?
Yes. So what is the next method? We have to now use the GMO as one of the methods to develop resistance to the disease. Okay, so now GMO involves changing the most current method involves changing one gene. For example, you change one gene to induce resistance to a disease. Or you change a gene which can increase the yield of the plant. But the majority of the GMO that are in the field are mainly for resistance to diseases. Yeah, so that is the reason why there is a GMO. So now you can change one gene. So let me take you back to the history of how GMO, the first GMO was done. Did you know that the first GMO was developed by Israelites?
Israel here?
Yes.
Hey, the Israel scientists were the first ever in the world to create a GMO.
They were using nuclear technology.
Nuclear?
Yes. So what they will do is bombard a plant at the tissue culture level when it is young with the nuclear to cause mutation in the genes of that plant. And then grow those bombarded plants and select, for example, like I said, majority of the GMOs are being developed for resistance to diseases. So they will then grow those plants in greenhouse and select those that are resistant to a disease. For example, the first one they did one on banana. The banana disease, a disease in South America. So they bombarded plants from South America with the nuclear, and then sent the plants back. So the plants were selected for resistance. Those that were able to resist that disease, Panama disease, and then they release those and send it to other countries where they could also test and see if those that are resistant can resist that disease in those countries. That was done in South America. That was the first time GMO was created. So using just nuclear. So it will cause mutation.
Mutation?
Yes, it will cause mutation, and then those mutated plants which are able to resist, because you can mutate one gene. Let me tell you, when a plant is infected, I'll give you an example of the work I did in Kansas State University. We worked on the interaction between maize mosaic virus and its vector. Now, a virus is transmitted by insects. So we looked at the interaction between the insect
and the virus.
So genes we produce genes from the gut of the insect.
Yeah,
from the gut of the insect. Because that the virus,
you get an insect, you slaughter at the gut here.
Yes, because that's where the insect, the virus multiplies.
I'm imagining you getting a mosquito and you slaughter its gut here.
You see, there are two types of virus transmission system. There are some viruses which do, when the insect picks it quickly, it releases that virus out. For example, the virus I talked about on sweet potato virus disease, which is caused by two viruses combined, sweet sweet potato feather mottle virus transmitted by aphids. And then one sweet potato chlorotic stunt virus transmitted by whiteflies. Now, the aphids, for them, they will pick the virus and immediately release it. Because the way aphids feed, they just keep poking plants. They come from that plant. If that plant is not good, they'll go to the next.
Another one.
Just like that.
Poke another one.
So that virus does not multiply in the gut, for example, of the aphids. But the one, the chlorotic stunt, multiplies in the gut of the whiteflies. So it is the same thing that happens with maize mosaic virus and its vector. So what we did was to look at the genes that the virus interacts with, that makes the virus to multiply in the gut of the what?
Of the
insect. So it is the same system. When you are developing GMO, for example, like I told you, using the nuclear technology, they had to mutate, bombard the plants are mutated, and if it happens that the gene that is responsible for interaction between the disease is mutated, then that plant will be resistant.
Okay, you have explained one type of
method of developing GMO.
Yes. What is the other second?
This was the earlier method. So now the second method is...
Before I go into... There is some I want you to explain.
Okay. So the second method is now looking at genes, resistant genes from other plants and introducing to another plant. For example, there's banana disease. There's a student who went to Ghent University to develop GMO, banana GMO, against black sigatoka. It's a disease of banana.
Black sigatoka?
Yes.
I've never heard of that.
It's here in Uganda.
Black sigatoka?
Yes.
It's a banana disease?
Yes. It's called black sigatoka.
How does it, when it affects the banana, how do they look like? Maybe I'm just bypassing
black
them.
spots. Those black spots.
Oh, you find a banana with some black spots.
You see, diseases are named according to the symptoms mostly. Yeah.
That's why you call it black sigatoka.
Yes.
Because it attacks the banana creates some black spots.
Yes.
Very
so
good.
the black
At least I've seen that one. Okay.
And the guy is currently the director of Coffee Research Institute.
Where? Here in Uganda?
Yes.
Coffee Research Institute?
Yes.
Where?
When he went to Ghent to do his PhD, so he developed a GMO banana. You remember I told you when I joined NARO, we had to develop a national biosafety and biotechnology policy with the National Council for Science and Technology. There has to be a policy. So we developed a policy, but the policy was mainly for introducing GMOs for testing their effect, whether it is able to resist or whether it is able to affect. That's the concern of the whole public, that GMO is going to affect other plants.
Yes, actually that's why I was coming.
Yeah.
It is.
So
that's why I was coming. My research shows that that the GMO that you've created can crossbreed with other world species, potentially harming the biodiversity.
but
You have
take care.
created a GMO, but you have not controlled its widespread. That once a GMO is planted here, it is capable of affecting other wild plants and significantly affecting them.
You have to be very careful as to the source of the information.
Yeah.
Where you get that source of information.
Yeah.
Yes. This could be written by someone who is anti-GMO. who doesn't know how the GMO development process is.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, so what we did, we had to write application after the National Council Science with National Council Science and Technology. We developed the policy, national policy, which was approved by the Parliament to be introduced to another plant so that it can also cause resistance to a disease in that plant. So in this case, there was a gene of pepper.
Red pepper.
Yes, which was introduced to develop to resist that the black sagatuka by this student. So the plants were in Ghent. So after the National Council, after the Parliament approved the policy, we then had to make application for the GMO to be brought from Ghent to Kawanda to test the, first of all, efficacy of the gene and its effect on any other organism associated with banana. So we wrote the application. I went to Ghent, University of Ghent, to defend that application. In Belgium.
Belgium?
Yes. Belgium.
You went there to defend the application?
I went there to defend the application. So after I explained what we developed, there was small editing. You see, when you are bringing GMO, the first thing is to do what we call confounding trial.
What does that involve?
That means you have to bring the GMO and only put it in a screen house. It must not leave that place. So that was why I told you last time we had to build screen house biosafety level 2 at Kawanda to test that plant that is developed, GMO that is developed using the gene from pepper to resist black sigatoka. Now there's what we call SOP, standard operating procedure. So once the plant reaches the airport, so the scientists have to go and transport it to Kawanda. It must not leave the car. If it leaves the car, immediately the plants must be removed. So those are some of the standard operating procedures that are associated with bringing in and testing of the GMO. And even when after testing, the plant must be destroyed. Yes, those are some of the standard operating procedures used before the GMO is released. So we brought the GMO, and the first thing we did two things. The first thing was to test the efficacy of the gene, whether it is able to resist this banana bacterial wilt. Secondly, is whether there is any effect it had on any organism that is associated with banana. For example, banana has nematodes, a lot of nematodes. So we developed a technique to test the presence of the nematodes in the banana to detect the nematodes which are associated with the banana.
Elsewhere, in other plants?
No, in Uganda.
No, I mean in other plants in Uganda.
No, in banana. In banana.
Uganda.
You see, you have genetically changed this plant. Now, will that thing affect the nematodes that are usual? Of course, those nematodes also disease causing. They are bad to the banana, but we are also interested to find if the effect of the GMO.
Okay, Dr. Aritua.
Yeah.
Let's go to another. I want to drive you to another gear now.
Yeah.
You plant scientists, the information I've got is that some of you are killing us silently. You are killing the population silently using GMOs. First of all, you may not be part of them, but the evidence I have here, the information I have here from our sources in our Pan-African world is that you, the scientists, not you in particular, but especially the Europe,
Europeans,
you're using GMO to control birth controls to control birth here in Africa. You're using GMO to control the production of our own indigenous food. You control by killing them, by bringing in your GMOs. When you plant your GMO plant here, the first thing it does is make sure that it kills the indigenous crops. You and I, you grew up from Arua, isn't it?
Yeah.
I grew up from Toro.
Yeah.
They are those indigenous crops, the beans, the maize, the banana. That small little banana which was indigenous, as small as it was so sweet. It was so nutritious. Now you have brought a big one, which is not sweet, but then you use it as a chemical weapon.
Let me call
the tomatoes that indigenous that we grew up eating, small but very nutritious and very, very sweet. Now you bring a one tomato is like here. Mango, same thing. Your aim is actually two-sworded. One is that you must kill Africa's indigenous crops while raising your own GMOs so that you have your own market.
I think, let me correct that perception. This is just a perception. This is not the truth. I told you there are only 7 countries in Africa that have allowed release of GMO. Uganda has not allowed the release of GMO.
But they're here.
There's no GMO. You will have to show to me the GMO. You will have to show to me the GMO plant you are claiming.
Dr. Tua.
Yes. There's no GMO in
You have not come across GMO crops or plants here?
No, there is no release because NARO is the authority to release the plants. So there's no way anyone will bring a plant and release it without NARO's authority. NARO is the authority.
Whether with or without the authority. When you go, in Uganda we know. Wait a minute.
Follow the policy.
Wait a minute. Where I don't agree with you is that you're trying to comfort me that only NARO has the authority to release GMO plants, and therefore, since it has not released, therefore there are no GMOs in Uganda.
Exactly. That's what I'm telling you.
Tomatoes are even, right now you're eating tomatoes and mangoes from Kenya. They are here in Uganda.
Let me tell you.
When you go to market, when you go to Nakasero market, don't you find GMO tomatoes, mangoes?
You are looking at the good tomatoes which are developed using conventional method as being genetically modified. Those are, you see, before GMOs came into use, breeders were developing plants that must yield very well.
Using what?
Conventional method.
By using it, what are you doing? Are you not altering its genes?
Let me tell you one example. Sweet potato. This is again. This goes back to virus. Sweet potato virus diseases. So in Namlonge, the breeder had to collect all varieties of sweet potato in Uganda, and then screen them for resistance to that disease. And then they found one which is resistant, but is not high yielding. So what he had to do is to fertilize, get the pollen from that plant which is resistant to the virus disease to a high yielding one. So now you see it's a Baganda name, Kaogo. There's a cassava,
Baganda,
a sweet potato name
Sweet
called kaogo. Now, he transferred that gene using just conventional breeding, just pollinating the resistant one with the high yield one, and screened that and got one which was resistant. So it's now called new kaogo, and it is resistant to is the disease, and it is high yield.
I hope you remember.
So
Our definition of GMO.
Let me finish. Those big banana, rather potato you see, are not GMO. They are conventional developed using conventional method, like I told you, just fertilizing by getting genes from one that is resistant or is high yielding and increase the yield of one which tests well. But so those are not GMO. Those are just conventional breed tomatoes which yield very well.
By doing that, haven't you altered its genes?
You've not altered because you're getting genes from.
We said the GMO stands for genetically modified organisms. It refers to any living organisms, plant, animal, or microbe, whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. Now, haven't you
very good. So you have used genetic engineering.
Yes.
But the method I've told you is not genetic engineering. This is conventional method. The genetic engineering is the one I told you, where you get a gene from another plant and introduce it into another plant. That is the using the genetic engineering. That's why I told you the current director of coffee is the one who developed one for resistance to black sectuca using genetic engineering. But most of these big tomatoes you see, they are bred conventional, not using genetic engineering, no gene introduced from anywhere. Just like I was telling you about new kaogo. New kaogo was developed using conventional method, getting a gene from another sweet potato, put it into another sweet potato.
From one potato to another, just to increase on the yield.
Yes, and resistance.
That is okay. That might not cause a health problem. That my problem is on the health of Africans. That may not cause a health, because after all, these are two potatoes. Yeah. All of them, we have been eating them.
Yes.
What you've done is to join two of them to create one good yield.
Resistant,
without chemical. That is okay.
So the same thing is applies to that potato, rather tomato you're talking about in the market that are big, whatever. Those tomatoes are developed by conventional method, not genetic engineering. I tell you, Uganda has not approved, the parliament has not approved release of genetically modified organisms. So there's no way anyone will sneak in genetically modified organism in Uganda.
Dr. Ritua, in Uganda, you know very well that things that are being prohibited by law are things that are even... You cannot tell me that because Uganda has not approved the use of GMO in Uganda, therefore there is no GMO in Uganda. In Uganda, things that are prohibited by law are the things that are happening. I want to tell you, Dr. Ritua.
Yes.
Like for instance, Monsanto, the cabal of all the GMOs in the world, and Bill Gates, they have projects here, and the seeds, GMO seeds, are being sold at Container Village here in Owino. Go and buy your seeds which are GMO, you go and plant, and that's all.
No, it's not GMO, it is conventional bread. I'm telling you, let me give you one example.
Monsanto and Bill Gates are supplying conventional seeds created out of conventional means?
Let me correct you there. Bill Gates does not develop genetically modified organisms. He has scientists.
He has scientists. Under his own control.
No. That's out. I'm telling you, there's a scientist. Okay, now let me give you now one example. The new method of developing now cassava, rather GMO, is called CRISPR S9. It's like a bacteria. You remember I told you that they would bombard, the Israelites would bombard the gene, the plant with the nuclear and cause mutation. So now there is that method, a new method, which is like a bacteria which will infect the plant and cause mutation in the plant. And then those mutated plants are selected for resistance, for example. Currently, International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, they have used that method to develop resistance to banana bacterial wilt. So they mutated one gene using that method. One gene was mutated.
Conventional method?
No, using that new genetic engineering method.
Genetic engineering method?
Yes, it caused the mutation, it mutated one gene. And when they screened the plants, they found that plant which has that mutated gene is resistant to the banana bacterial wilt and does not affect its yield. You see that? So there is no, that thing was funded by Bill Gates. Actually, Bill Gates came up. It is a collaborative
That's what I was explaining to you.
Between
Bill Gates may not be a scientist, but he has money and influence that he uses.
Yes,
money.
But it is not him who does the work.
Yes, I know.
He works with the national organizations that like there was a neuroscientist involved. There was Tanzanian scientists involved. Bill Gates personally came to Tanzania to see the progress of that work. And now that plant was tested in Namlonge. There's no introduction of any gene, just caused mutation. And then I'm not updated about the resistance in that cassava after using that mutation method. I don't know how far they have gone. But since there's already a policy for confined field trial, there's circles also in Kawanda, rather Namlonge. So they are testing there cassava for resistance to this cassava disease. This disease has devastated cassava so much. So they're using that method. But they have not released that. It is in confined field trial, meaning it's only in confined place. It's not allowed to go until all its effects are found out. If it has bad effect, it will not be released.
So, Dr. Arthur, what you are contesting is that it is not true that there is any GMO in Uganda.
Yes, I'm contesting that.
And I'm putting it to you that the fact that Uganda has not officially allowed GMOs in Uganda, I don't know whether that is true also, because...
yes, Uganda has not allowed. They have not passed that policy. Because there are only 7 countries in Africa that are allowed.
I have seen GMOs in Uganda.
How did you know that those are GMOs?
I see the way they look. I see where they buy the seeds by Monsanto here at Container Village.
That is
you find one tomato is like this, one mango is like this.
That is what we call morphological examination. Morphological examination. You've just done morphological examination. You've not done genetic morphological
examination
to prove that there's an external gene in that plant. So you must first prove that there is another gene that was introduced in those.
So
you just have looked at the morphological features. Yes.
You grew up from Arua, I grew up from Toro.
Yeah.
There are those crops those maize. You find the maize is multicolored. You remember those maize?
Yes.
Multicolored maize.
Yes.
Very sweet.
Yes.
You find these small bananas. You find these small potatoes.
Yeah.
It is very hard and sweet. These ones are very watery and so big. So where are those crops? Somebody told me the last time he went to the laboratory of Monsanto and Bill Gates.
Where?
All in US.
Bill Gates has no lab. I'm telling you, I live in US.
They sponsor. It may not be named after him, but you know, I told you, he has influence.
Bill Gates has
Somebody
no lab.
went and found all those samples of our maize here in Africa, the multicolored maize, in their labs.
Do you know why the maize is multicolored?
No.
It's because bees, when they're pollinating, they just pick genes from one. Maybe they pick one from one that is red, and then fertilizes one that is white.
So what happened?
So you find them at
So now what happened to those bees? They no longer do that? The bees are no longer in existence?
Bees are the ones that cause that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Those yesteryears we had those maize. Now you are saying it is the work of bees. So what has happened to these bees? We still have the same bees.
Yes.
But they are not cross-pollinating those maize the way they used to. So what is the problem?
They are.
No, do you anymore have those multicolored maize?
It depends on the available maize that is on the market.
Now you are changing. You see, now you are changing.
I'm not changing. I'm telling you.
We have grown up looking and enjoying our indigenous crops.
Yes.
These crops are no longer in existence. And the reason is Monsanto and the cabal have used the GMOs to penetrate and destroy our own indigenous crops. This is what you don't want to accept. You are saying Uganda has not accepted, but we know, all of us, it is not illegal right now to sell human kidney in Uganda, but it is happening.
I told you.
Are you not aware? Are you not aware that the hospitals selling kidneys? Is it allowed?
You have not proved genetically that this thing has external gene other than the maize gene. I explained to you why those maize are colored. It is because the bees, when they are pollinating, they get pollen from one plant to the other. Then you get those nice colored
agreed.
maize, which we used to eat.
Agreed.
Now, if the amount of the colored maize has reduced, it is because now currently they are releasing high yielding maize that do not have that colored plants. So in other words, the level of colored or red maize has reduced. So we are currently having more of the white maize rather than those odd colored method.
Really?
Yes, that's the reason.
There are things that
it's not,
I am not a scientist, but there are things that I am observing just with my naked eyes, and I see there is a problem. Do you think we have a problem with GMOs in Africa and in Uganda in particular?
Let me give you one example. On sunflower. Sunflower.
Sunflower.
Yeah. The sunflower, it is the mandate of Serere to work on sunflower. So when I just joined the NARO, so they are breeding, they like I told you, breeding for high yield.
Yes.
Right? Using conventional method, just fertilizing. And then so they got some seeds from Monsanto. And then they planted.
That's aspect.
They planted that. They planted that in where did they plant it? Was it in Lowero? So what happened? The Monsanto plants got infected, and then the local plants didn't get infected. Do you know that maize has, rather sunflower has a relative? You see the wild plants that look like sunflower.
Sunflower.
Yeah. Now, sunflower has a virus. Now, of course, a virus always has what we call the alternative crop.
Hey,
Yes,
a virus
that's
has,
where they hide.
a virus has an alternative crop.
Yes. So sad that they will grow in that plant. So
Hey.
now what happened was
Wait
when
a minute. A virus will grow in one plant, hiding in order to go and affect another plant.
a virus can affect several plants. That is what we call alternative crop. So now they planted the field trial. The Monsanto plants got infected. The Ugandan plants didn't get infected. So they called me as a virologist to go and look at that and find what is the cause of this. What is the cause of this? Why is Monsanto? They started complaining Monsanto has brought a virus, infected plants. So I did the literature research. I found that there is already original. They had identified a sunflower virus. Yeah, in Uganda. So what happened was, because these Monsanto plants were not screened for this virus, it was developed in the US, conventional, not using genetic modification. So remember I told you that AIDS or the COVID is a wild animal plant, a wild animal disease. Now we don't have research, we go to these wild animals and eat, we got infected. So it's the same thing.
Although I refuse to agree with you that AIDS is an animal disease, I know that AIDS, I believe that AIDS is somebody's business, somebody created it.
No, AIDS is a chimpanzee virus, I told you. Now, that sunflower of Monsanto got infected with this virus. Why? Because it was not already screened for the resistance to that virus. In US, that virus does not exist. So now itself, they started complaining. Then I wrote a paper. I said there was already a virus infecting sunflower. This sunflower, actually, the Monsanto sunflower was not screened for this virus. So it is just like AIDS going to affect, AIDS affecting a human being from chimpanzee, because the human being didn't have the resistance. So the Ugandan local sunflower didn't have the resistance, rather had the resistance because they had been exposed to the virus. But the Monsanto was not. So they got infected. The virus hides itself in the alternative crop, that relative of sunflower. So I went to when they sent me to UK to find the cause of the banana bacterial wilt. So I also picked that sunflower. I went with it. I went there. We were able to isolate the virus. There are some plants. We call it alternative crops.
In the US?
No, everywhere. They're even here in Kawanda, to isolate virus from whichever organism, whichever plant it is affecting. You can easily isolate that virus in that plant. So in UK, when I was there, I gave the sample to the virologist technician to isolate the virus. They isolated it. But since my mandate was to look at the banana bacterial wilt, so I didn't continue with the identification of that virus. Actually, when someone from South America read that paper, he wrote to me, he said, let's write a collaborative project and look at this virus. But then I had gone to UK, US rather, so I could not continue with that.
So my senior elder, Dr. Valentine.
Yeah.
As we wind up this show, I wanted you to be crystal clear.
Yeah.
Are GMOs? Okay, you're saying they're not here in Uganda.
No.
But wherever they are, can GMOs be detrimental to human health?
No. I told you, before GMO are released, their effects are tested. It's just like virus. Developing for example.
So GMOs have no side effects to human health?
It doesn't have, because they are tested just like developing drugs. Drugs, they are tested, their side effects are tested before they're released.
Yeah.
That's why we do the GMO confined field trial, such that any effect it has.
But when you say like that, when I know and you know that during COVID-19, there are people who died out of the COVID-19 vaccination because of the side effects. Likewise, in every medicine, every GMO has got side effects to human health.
The people I told you that I know of died were in the UK. They had pre-existing
underlying health conditions.
They were very old people. They were not young people.
Even here they died. People died here.
People died here because of the virus, not because of the vaccine. They died because of the virus. So I was telling you, you people you are complaining about, we were for a meeting in Monono. People were complaining about GMO. I asked them, you people, you are complaining about GMO. If we now develop a banana which has GMO, that is resistant, a GMO banana which is resistant to AIDS, who of you is not going to eat that banana?
And what did they say?
They laughed.
Everybody say we do eat it.
Some said they eat the most, just laugh.
If you created a banana
that is resistant
to AIDS, that when you eat it you don't suffer from AIDS, and it is created out of GMO,
you want to eat that?
You will eat it.
Yeah. So then why are you complaining?
No, because
the people are complaining about GMO
because now you're creating,
because it doesn't have direct human impact. The impact, it comes in terms of high yield. So it takes long. You don't realize the impact immediately. But should there be GMO that has a direct impact, like I'm telling you that if we develop a banana which is resistant to AIDS, people will rush to eat that. They will not complain because they know it has direct health impact on them.
Yeah, because you've created a solution to a problem. But now here is GMO, you're creating a problem.
No, there's no problem. I'm telling you.
Are you not aware that nowadays cancers have increased, especially in our population here in Africa, mainly because of the types of foods that we're eating nowadays, and GMO is inclusive?
GMO, at least not GMO. I'm not aware of GMO, and I'm not aware of like I told you, I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't want to talk much about the increase in cancer because I don't know the process. But all I know is cancer is caused by, just like AIDS, the continuous changing and multiplication of genes. Do you know the cause of cancer? Cancer is caused by it, just like AIDS. But your cells are multiplying and changing shape all the time. Then
AIDS is caused by something else, not cells.
No. That is the gene of the AIDS which is changing. The same thing, the cancer has genes. So I'm talking of cells because the cells have genes. So in cancer, the cancer keep changing shape and multiplying. That's why it has taken long to develop resistance. But at least they have developed systems that can enable you to survive cancer.
Okay.
Yes.
And on that note, my comrade Dr. Valentine Arituha, the plant I've been hosting him. He's a plant scientist. My name is Andrew Rumba Katusabe, your speaker, and this is the Pan-African Pyramid, the weekly round table. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.